Good morning, everyone. My name is Alana Dillon. I'm an Education and Support Services Coordinator with Parkinson's Society BC. I'll be facilitating our webinar today. Thank you for joining us this morning for our Ask the Expert webinar with occupational therapist Lisa Wechzelberger, speaking on safety and independence using assistive devices for Parkinson's disease. Before we get started, I want to go through a few housekeeping items with you. First, I want to let you know that we are recording the webinar, which will be available for viewing on our website in about a week. Secondly, you will see a chat icon at the bottom of your screen. If you click on that chat icon, it will open the chat box up for you to type your questions and comments. And Lisa will kindly answer questions at the end of her presentation and some along the way. And finally, to optimize your experience with this webinar, please do ensure that you adjust your speaker volume both on your speakers and on your computer to hear the webinar well. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Lisa Wechzelberger now. Lisa has been working as an occupational therapist for 15 years. After working in acute care and inpatient rehab, Lisa joined the team at the outpatient neurology clinic at Jim Pattison 11 years ago. Over the past years, Lisa has learned a wealth of knowledge about Parkinson's disease, treatment, and long-term management. She continues to seek out educational opportunities to learn more about Parkinson's to provide the best care to her patients. Lisa, I will pass it over to you now. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome to everyone who has joined. As Alana said, my name is Lisa. So today what I'm going to go through is sort of categories of assistive devices that can help both with your independence, managing functional task, if you have tremor or if you have balance challenges, coordination, of course. So yeah, as I go through, one second here, there we go. Keep in mind that there are many types of assistive devices out there, and some can be very helpful while others may not help you. I often suggest, if you're looking for devices or tools, is to start with a few and then build this collection over time, because sometimes people end up with a house full of items that they may only use occasionally or not at all. And for many things that I'll talk about, it is helpful to have an assessment with an occupational therapist, a physiotherapist, or a speech language pathologist. Keep in mind, I don't have any affiliations with any products I am going to discuss, and certainly have no financial gain from any of them. And I will have, as I go through, I'm going to show you pictures as well, and I've labeled them as well as where I got the pictures from. Okay. So first of all, as I had mentioned, the role of any device is to help us to maintain independence, manage our symptoms, and simply make tasks and life a little bit easier. So first, I'm going to start with cooking tools. So when we think about cooking, we want to really think about all areas of the tasks that we do. And again, we're aiming to make things easier. So for example, small kitchen tools and appliances. Sometimes we're very used to doing things as we've always done, but it's a good idea to branch out and think about, is there a device that might help us to, whether it's reducing time doing something, making it easier or safer. So things like rice cookers, air fryers, slow cookers, using a convection microwave instead of, or a toaster oven instead of your full oven. Again, if you're having to bend down to reach into an oven, it may be easier or safer to do it on a counter convection microwave or toaster oven. If you're looking for things like when you're cutting up food, cutting boards, there are adapted cutting boards out there that have suction cups on the bottom. I'm going to show you in a second. There's, we want to make sure that if you're using a cutting board, that it doesn't slide around. So looking for one that either has silicone on the edges or adding a layer of non-slip device underneath to make it easier. Knives are really important. So making sure our knives are sharp and that they fit our hands well, that it's not too heavy or too light. And certainly safety devices, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, cut resistance gloves. These are all some examples of things that can help us. So I have some pictures to show you here. So in the top left corner, this is a rocker knife. So a rocker knife can be helpful if you're having trouble gripping a knife, as well as tremors, because with the rocker knife, you don't have to do the motion back and forth or using a lot of force to cut through things. You can rock it back and forth. In the center, I have a picture of an adapted cutting board. So on this cutting board, and I apologize, you can't see it very well in this picture, but there are suction cups on the bottom, so it stays in place. And then there are two prongs that you can put food on so that it doesn't slide around. And the extra guards on the side, that's so that if, like, let's say you're trying to butter something or add a sauce to something, or not a sauce, like a spread of some sort, then your bread or whatever you're spreading won't slide around. Electric can openers. So I'm sure most of us had this in many years in the past. They are absolutely available. Using them allows you to get things done easier and faster. The chopper on the bottom right corner, this is something that's been around for a couple of years, but it's still quite new. It allows you to chop things without having to do each cut by hand. So you can see this one comes with multiple attachments, depending on what size of food that you're wanting to cut. And simply by putting it on top of the cutter and pushing down. Safety gloves can be great, especially if you have a tremor or just have problems with coordination. It just protects our hands from little cuts that can happen, or big cuts sometimes too. And then, of course, most people are familiar with toaster ovens and slow cookers, can be very helpful. Okay, so after we cook food, we got to eat food. So a couple of things that can help. Anything that has a larger grip will be easier for us to use. It simply reduces that effort from the hand to hold on to smaller utensils. If you find that you're spilling things or have the potential to spill, using a cup with a lid can make a big difference. Some people really like to use straws. I would always recommend some form of silicone straw or silicone tip, simply because metal straws can actually cut the inside of your mouth if you move in the wrong direction. One warning with straws is if you are experiencing swallowing problems, it would be good to avoid them or check in with your medical team, because straws can actually make swallowing problems worse because it simply brings the drink or liquid back too quickly to the back of our throat. So you just want to pay attention to that. I'm going to show you a picture here and about some of the devices that can be helpful. One thing I'll mention, especially when it comes to eating or even when you're cooking, I'm a big fan of what I call as hand flicks. So hand flicks are simply making a fist and opening your hand quickly and doing this about 10 times. What this does is it helps to ensure we're opening our hands fully, as well as it gives that coordination from the brain to the hands a better connection. So simply by opening them 10 times like that and closing them, it will help. Now, what is important sometimes is people will start doing this and then their hands will start opening even smaller. So we want to work on the big opening and looking at your hands to make sure that they're opening all the way. Okay, so some tools that I have listed, but I'll show you here. So utensils, there's many different styles out there. This is just one of them. So these are just large handled utensils. You can also get weighted utensils. They do help for some people. I know that online and on social media, people will talk about different types of utensils for Parkinson's. There are times that their devices will work for people, but I have yet to find a device that works as well as just a built-up handle. Weighted utensils can help, but they also can make it harder to lift your arm if you're having fatigue. There's devices, I didn't put it on here, but there are utensils that have a vibration factor to it. I've had them in the clinic. I've used them with many people. I haven't found anyone that it works great with. And they're very pricey. So that is a choice for you, but you have to sort of weigh the pros and cons. From a plate perspective, you certainly can buy what's called a scoop plate. So these red and white ones, one edge is higher and it has a foam bottom on the plate so it doesn't move around. You may find that you already have a bowl or a plate that works well. At home, I often use it's sort of like a pasta bowl. So it's a bowl, but it has a higher edge. That can work as well, where you have something to aim to scoop things up. There's also plate guards. So if you're chasing food around, you can add on your plate, you can add these guards to any plate so that, again, you have something to push the food against to lift it up. Now, I mentioned about straws. So I have two different types here. There's ones that are metal straws with the silicone tips, and then there's full silicone straws. That would be my top choice just because of a safety factor, so that you don't injure your mouth. And I'm a big fan of travel mugs with a lid. This one with the handle can be very effective because you can slide your hand under the handle so that you have a better grip and more control. Just makes life a little bit easier at times. Okay. Now, next sort of thought of, what other things we do in our day is getting dressed. So getting dressed can be a challenge for people. First, I just want to go over some techniques that can help you to get dressed. So number one is sit down on something. A chair is best for a lot of people. When we're getting dressed, it's the one activity in the day that most of us stand on one leg. And so sitting down just reduces that effort and it adds to your balance safety. Move with intention and big movements. So one thing with dressing is especially things like putting on a shirt or your jacket. People with Parkinson's, it's a Parkinson's related problem. They move with really small movements. So we want to move with big movements, pushing your arm all the way into the jacket sort of thing, instead of small little movements. Buttons. So buttons are a tricky thing. So I actually happen to wear buttons today. So with buttons, what happens is people start to lean forward and then the buttons get sort of hidden underneath us. So whenever possible, we want to pull the clothes away from our body. And then we want to push our thumb into the hole as much as we can, even if it's a small amount, so that we have somewhere to aim. So that, again, we're thinking big movements. We're going to push that button into my thumb and we're going to quickly push it through the hole, instead of sort of trying to just aim without having anything to aim towards. Putting on our jackets. So quick movements, big movements, getting your arm right into the hole of the jacket and then swinging the jacket up over your shoulder. If it's not over our shoulder, it's going to be very difficult to reach behind us. I have had people fall putting jackets on because if it's not over your shoulder and you're reaching behind you, that can be a source of a fall. So just building safety into all of this. And then tools. So I'm going to show you some tools. Everything I have listed here we'll talk about. So again, not everybody would need any of these tools and not everybody would need all of them. One second, I just have things popping on my screen. Okay, so the first one, long-handled reacher. So long-handled reacher, which is the top left corner, it simply makes our arm longer. So this can be used for picking things up off the floor. moving things on if they're high, sort of deep into a cupboard where you're having to move things forward. I would say they lift sort of moderately weighted items. I wouldn't lift anything too heavy with a long-handled reacher or anything precious that could fall and break. But simply it makes our arms longer. So you can reach down to put your clothes on if you're having trouble bending forward. Holding the clothing with the reacher can make life a lot easier. There's devices for putting your socks on. They're called sock aids, and it's simply by putting the sock on the device, and then you lower it to the ground and slide your foot in and push or pull up on the strings that are attached if you're having trouble getting your socks on. The next thing would be a long-handled shoehorn. So a long-handled shoehorn can be used to get your shoes on, of course. I also find them handy to take your socks off because you can slide it in along your skin and then just push your socks off. Over on the right-hand side, again, I have two tools to help with buttons and zippers. So if you try the method of getting your thumb into the hole and push it through, and you've tried that a lot of times and it's not working, there is a device called a button hook. So if you can see this woman, it's a black handle. It has a metal piece that goes, it's like a loop. It goes through the hole and around the button, and then you just pull, and it will pull the button through the hole. So if you're dealing with dress shirts that have really small buttons, this can be very helpful. It may take you a few extra seconds, maybe a few minutes to get it all done, but you may feel it's less frustrating to do it this way. And zipper pulls. If you're struggling to get your zippers pulled up, a zipper pull can help. This one's a button hook and zipper pull. So the button hook's at the top, and then there's a hook at the bottom to link into your zipper. I do find that pulling the zipper up is not the hardest part often. It's getting the zipper into the connector. I'm just going to grab my own jacket. I'll show you. So again, moving with intention is if I have the zipper pull, we want to pull our jacket away from our body as much as possible. And then we're really focused on one step at a time. Sorry, dark in here. So getting that zipper into all the way down into the bottom first, before then trying to pull the zipper up. Okay. If you're struggling, if your zippers are the tags are too small, you can get hooks to put or sort of straps to put on, so you have something better to grip onto. But often I find with zippers, it's the technique is what we really want to work on first to make it easier. Shoes. Shoes are really important the type of shoes we wear are important for safety. We want to find things that fit our feet well. You don't want to wear shoes that are too loose or can slip off because those do affect how we walk. There's a couple of tools that help. The first is elastic shoelaces. So I have this picture here of this shoe with orange laces. There's many different styles for elastic shoelaces. This is just one of them. Simply by using an elastic shoelace, you tie it up once, and then you slide your foot in and out without having to tie the laces every time. Another example, again, I've never tried these shoes, but I have seen them. There's a new shoe called Kizik, and it has where you slide your foot in and the back of the heel will drop down, but then come back up once your shoe is on. So I just wanted you to know that there are devices and different adapted things out there, and there's more and more coming out. Another thing is adapted clothing. So if you're really struggling with specific types of clothing, there are adapted ways out there. So the best example is Tommy Hilfiger has an adapted clothing line. And so they have, for example, dress shirts that are magnetic. And so when you put it on, the magnets bring the buttons together. And they're pretty good. They're pretty strong buttons. They stay, or magnets, they stay together. So you don't have to worry about the buttons. And they have easy to pull on pants and skirts and different types of clothing. And that it's a mainstream brand, which is nice for people to be able to access. Okay. Oh, and someone just mentioned about shoelaces. Yes, there are other types too. So there's athletic shoelaces where it's sort of like an elastic band that you can just pull together. Those work really well. Velcro shoes can work well too. It just depends on the style of the shoe that you're looking for as well. Oops. Okay, bathroom equipment. So I'm not going to go too far in depth on bathroom equipment because it really varies on what people need, but I'm going to give you a few ideas of things that can both increase safety, but also just make life easier. So first, just some bathroom equipment. So at the bottom of the screen, so we have things like grab bars. Grab bars can be very effective to allow us to be independent and safe. I would always recommend, wherever possible, to use permanent grab bars. Or on a bathtub, there is a grab bar called a clamp-on grab bar that can go over the edge of the tub. I'm cautious about the suction cup grab bars because they do need to be checked every time you use them because they can lose their suction and then create a falls hazard. For showers and bathtubs, there's many different types of equipment out there. So there's the most basic shower chairs or shower stools. There's benches that fit for the bathtub. I've shown you here a bathtub lift. So if you really love soaking in the bathtub and it's becoming harder and harder, there are bathtub lifts that will, this picture in the center, will lower you into the tub. You stay sitting on the seat and then it will bring you back up and you can swivel to get out of the bathtub. So it's all about what are your goals and what are the things you want to be able to still be doing if it's a problem. There are other sort of less known items. So things like nail clippers. Cutting our nails can be hard for a lot of people. So these ones I've shown you have a suction cup on the bottom. And then the nail clipper. So essentially you don't have to hold the nail clipper in your hand, but it's on a surface and it's much easier to cut your nails that way. They also have emery boards that are attached so that you can use that as well. And so it's sort of looking for different items in different ways. Another example would be electric razors or electric toothbrushes. Both can be very helpful. Now, some people do find that the vibration can actually make things worse. So you sort of have to trial and error. But an electric toothbrush can be very effective to really do a good job at getting all of your teeth cleaned, because sometimes that motion of brushing your teeth can be harder for people. And another thing just so you're aware, there are things like a hair dryer stand. So this one I have pictured. It has a suction cup that suctions onto a counter or a mirror, and it will hold the hair dryer so that you can still stand or sit to have your hair blow drying without having to hold the blow dryer and a comb and your hair and your balance all at the same time. Okay. Now, a few things that can help in our bedrooms. So a lot of people are probably aware of something called a bed rail. Bed rails can be very helpful if you're struggling or having any difficulty with standing up or sitting onto your bed and even turning in bed, because it's a solid handle that you can hold onto. If you do use a bed rail, I would suggest putting it up near the head of your bed so that it doesn't block you from getting in and out of your bed. Another tool is called a blanket lifter. This simply fits at the end of your bed and it keeps the blankets off of your feet. So there's a couple of reasons why this would be helpful. If you have neuropathy, so if you have pain or tingling in your feet, not normally related to Parkinson's, but people have different health problems, having the blankets off your feet can reduce any pain. It also just simply makes it easier to turn over in bed because your feet don't get stuck in the blankets. Another tool is a bed ladder. So these attach to a bed frame, and it's an easier way if you're having trouble coordinating to sit up in bed, because that can be a problem for some people. So there's bed ladders. I've also had people create their own rope that they attach to the bed frame, and then it has knots in the rope to sort of hold on to and to help them up. The biggest thing I would suggest in anyone's bedroom is to have automatic night lights. So when we can see better, our balance is better. And so the automatic night lights can be very helpful because they turn on when there's motion. And it gives just enough light that it's not the full light, but enough to help guide you if you're getting up for the bathroom at night, or even if you wake up early in the morning. Okay, and can be very helpful to just, increase the safety. A lot of people do have, when I hear of them having falls, if it's at nighttime, it's normally because the light isn't turned on. And so this would be one way to sort of help with that. Okay, so I'm going to briefly talk about walking aids. This is an area where I would recommend that you're talking with your medical team for specific suggestions for you. There's a lot of different devices out there, and we want to make sure that you're using the one that works best for you, as well as looking at what's appropriate, because these things can get really expensive really fast. So I'm gonna just talk in general terms here. So first, I'm going to start with walking poles. So there are many people benefit from walking poles for a couple of reasons. They help with balance, they help with endurance, posture, arm swing. They have a lot of great added benefits to them. The ones I have on the screen are called activator poles. These were actually developed by therapists in North Vancouver. And they're designed for people that have mobility challenges. So they're a little bit different than a traditional hiking pole. So they have at the bottom, they have bell-shaped feet to make it nice and stable. The handles have a platform for your hand to rest on. So you're pushing down with the poles when you're walking, and of course they're height adjustable. So this would be sort of, again, I have no financial gain from it, but that would be my number one brand for a walking pole if you were getting a new pair. Walking poles, if you've never used them before, like I said, probably best to have an assessment with your medical team, but they take time to learn how to use them. In general, it takes like 3 to 4 hours over time to sort of build up your confidence and the skill with using them. And these ones are designed to be out in front of you. So the pole is always in front of you to help with your balance. Another common area that some people use is a four-wheeled walker. So there are many different types of four-wheeled walkers. The one I have on the screen here is the most common type that I would recommend. So this one has big, wide wheels. It has a seat to sit on. It folds inwards on itself instead of front to back, so it's much more stable. And the brakes are inside the handles instead of being on the outside. But I think for the majority is, we always want to look at the size of the wheels. A lot of walkers have small wheels. Those are really meant for indoor use and not a lot of outdoor use. This type of walker can be used both indoors and outdoors. And I have lots of people that use walkers for many different reasons. Everything from balance to dizziness if they have it, it's extra support. It's somewhere to sit down. So if you're struggling with fatigue and tiredness, it's somewhere that you know you can sit down and rest if needed. The bottom walker is something that has been around for several years. I learned of this walker at the Parkinson's Congress in 2016. So it was designed for people with Parkinson's, and it's used for different conditions as well. I just wanted to mention it today because it's probably something that people talk about in the community. So this walker has a couple of features. Whether they're, beneficial or not for you is the question always. But this walker has a wide base and it's a little bit heavier, so it's less likely to tip over. It can come with, sorry, I lost my mouse here, a laser line at the bottom, which can help with freezing. And it also can come with a metronome, so it can give you a beat to walk to. I would say the downside to this type of walker is they're quite large. So when it folds down, it's still quite large. And the brakes on this are what is called reverse braking. So you have to squeeze one of the brake handles for it to move. Whereas the other type of walker, the brakes are used to stop or to slow down. But this one you actually have to squeeze to walk with. So I do, in my own clinic, we have one, we trial it with people, we see how it works. When it comes to laser lights, so people have been very creative in trying to make laser lights for their own walkers, canes, poles. There's a YouTube video out there that shows you how to make a laser light for a walker by using a simple laser light from like a home store, like Home Depot, and attaching it to a walking device. Lasers do help for some people with, if you're having a lot of freezing of gait, it can help to move forward if you're frozen. And then the other item that I haven't posted because it's more difficult to recommend are canes. A lot of people use canes. A lot of people purchase ones on their own, and sometimes doctors or their therapists will recommend. From a Parkinson's balance perspective, canes are not often effective. A cane will not stop you from falling. Canes are used more in if you're struggling with pain in a knee or a hip, or if you're recovering from a surgery, but they can be effective. I will mention that there's so many different types of canes out there. A lot of people come in to my clinic and they have what's called a quad cane. So the feet are really wide on the cane. Those can be a tripping hazard. And so we want to be cautious with the style of the cane. Oops, lights turned off. The style of the cane that we're using. Okay, medication. So as I'm sure everyone in our group knows, Parkinson's medications, it's one of those medications that it's very important to have the right dose at the right time. And having a system to organize your medications is very important. To me, if you have a system that is working, that is a good system. The time to change your system is when it's no longer working well for you. So if you're missing medications, or if it's difficult to know which meds are for which time, that's important to try and find a system. Or if you're having trouble opening the bottles or devices, we want to find a way that works for you. So I'm going to show you some pictures here. So the most basic type of medication organizer is this one, this colorful one at the top here. Oh, sorry. So it simply has the 7 days of the week and different time slots for the day. So I have attempted over the last couple of years to find a medication organizer that has more than 4 times in the day. It's very difficult. I have yet to find one that has more than 4, sometimes 5 you can find. But for some people who are taking medication more often than that, it means having more than one organizer. If you are using one of these, it's helpful, just set it up for the week, do it one time and you're good to go for the week. You can also take a marker and actually write in the time that you take it at, so that it's easier to remember. There's at the bottom, I have a picture of a blister pack. So blister packs come from pharmacies and they're set up with the dose that you need and the time and the day. And you have to push them out through the foil at the back to get them out of the pack. Again, very helpful to help with the timing and even which medications to take at which time. For a lot of people, one of these methods can work. Another type of system is there are electronic medication dispensers. So I have just 2 examples here. There are more. So the bottom picture is something you would set up at home. So the lid comes off and you put in the dose, the medication and the time in the day. If you're taking medications multiple times in the day, this may only work for a few days instead of a full week, just depending on how many times. The device at the top here is something that's newer into Canada. It's called the Pack4U. It comes with, it's all set up by a specific pharmacy, and it will dispense your medications in a small plastic, like sealed bag, essentially. And you can either tear the bag open or cut it with scissors. This is an example of one of them that is done by a pharmacy. There's actually no charge for that device, as long as you go to the pharmacy that it belongs to. There are other electronic devices out there, and depending where you live in the province, it depends on your access. So for example, if you live in Surrey, Home Health in Surrey, the pharmacists have access to a different type of device. It comes from Lifeline, but similar design where it's a device that sits in your home. With all of these, you can have several doses dispensed so that you can go out for the day and take your medication with you. For me, I would always suggest starting with low tech, so the organizers or blister packs, and before going to the dispensers, simply to make it easier, but you're welcome to try different methods. And with that in mind, I also have about clocks and timers. So we want to use a timer that will work for you. So if that's your cell phone that's set up with timers for each of your doses, or the ones that you may tend to forget, like mid-afternoon for a lot of people. There's also clocks, as I have here. It tells you the day of the week, the date, the time, is it morning or afternoon, as well as you can set timers that will remind you to take your medication. Okay. So just to add in, general hand function. So our hands are obviously really important for how we do things. As I mentioned at the beginning, the hand flick, so preparing our hands is a good way to help us get started with a task. We want to try and look at our hands when we're doing our tasks to help us focus, as well as to help our hands move as we think we are. We want to keep using your hands. So doing everyday tasks will help with your hand strength, coordination, and dexterity. So things like washing dishes, washing counters, getting dressed, feeding yourself. This is all hand practice. It can be very helpful to practice in addition to just the time you do your task. So example, doing buttons. Instead of just doing your buttons up once, maybe twice a day, is actually taking time to practice it. So if you're sitting watching TV, practice doing up a shirt that you use often, or your jean button, practice that. Do it over and over and over. until your hands are working at a better speed and just ability. Okay, so the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about some technology and tools to help with other parts of our life. So technology is an area that has been around for a while, but continues to improve on a regular basis. And so you may know of technology that I don't even know about because it's different access to different things. But I'm going to go over a few things that I'm aware of that can help. So the first thing is voice activation. So there are a lot of products out there that we can use our voice to tell it what to do. So if you're using Apple products, Siri would be the word. If you're using Google or Amazon, it's Alexa. Voice activation can be used for things like turning lights on and off, checking the time on our phone, sending messages, receiving messages on your cell phones or devices. It can also be set up for things like changing the temperature of your home. Now, of course, this works best if you have no speech problems. If speech is impaired, it can be more difficult to use that voice activation. Voice dictation or speech to text software and apps can be effective. The challenge with these is it takes time to assess which one will work for you and practice. For something like voice dictation, one product that's on the market is called Dragon Dictation. It takes hours and hours of practice for it to recognize your voice and be able to do that dictation. So it's all about what your goals are. If you are working on writing a book and your hands aren't working as well as you want them to for typing, yes, that may be a good time to work on that. But if you're using it where you want to just do shorter, smaller things, it may, you have to weigh your time and effort for which will work for you. When we're looking at technology, we want to look at what we actually have already. So on cell phones and tablets and computers, there are accessibility features. So there's everything from increasing the font size on your devices to reducing the sensitivity. So on a mouse, you can change how sensitive the clicking is on a mouse. So if you have a hand tremor and it clicks more than you want it to, you can change it so that it doesn't pick up all those little movements. Now, every computer and device and tablet are slightly different. And so it's a little bit of learning about what features your devices have. Communication apps can be helpful. So again, I'm not going to go into specifics because there are so many and it's really individualized. A speech language pathologist can help you find an appropriate communication app that works for you. So there's things like picture boards on apps. There's where you can type and it will talk for you. Those are some examples. I'm going to show you some adapted keyboards and mouse features that can help. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide because I'm going to talk about these other things. So have an example of, this is called the Echo Dot. So it's to use with Google or Amazon, where you can control things with your voice. Another option, if you have Apple products, is with Siri. So this is an Apple Watch using Siri. I actually just had the opportunity to teach a patient how to do this yesterday. So that was always interesting to help with. And it works really well if you're able to say, "Hey Siri." Make sure my own phone doesn't turn on when I say that. And so it's using, devices you may have at home already or possibly new ones, depending on what your goals are. I already mentioned automatic night lights. It is a form of technology to be able to use that. There's something called smart plugs. So smart plugs connect with different computer apps and home technology. But it can be used for turning lights on and off. It can be used for turning, making sure your stove is turned off at night. It could be used for, actually maybe not a stove because those use a different place, but appliances. Some people use these to turn their coffee maker on at a certain hour so that it always is on when they wake up. So, it's exploring, what is it in your house that would be helpful to have these devices for. If you're using a keyboard or a computer, looking at the devices that you have. So there are keyboards that have larger keys. And this one is also different because it has high contrast. So if you're having any vision problems, so this one, it has white keys with the big black letters. They're easier to see than a traditional keyboard that's black with white letters. A joystick for using a computer mouse. So this requires different use of the hand, and sometimes it's easier for people to have better control using a joystick. And at the bottom, I have just a name, Technology for Living. So Technology for Living is a BC operated program that offers technology services to people who need it for no cost. So an example would be a switch. So you can have, I've had a patient with a switch where if they needed to get their wife's attention, the wife had hearing problems. So they would push this big button, which is a switch, and it would ring a doorbell telling the wife that he needed help. So there's lots of different things that can help. For Technology for Living, it requires a therapist to be involved. And so that's something that someone like myself would help you with. And I just have to check my own slide here. Okay, voice aids. So this is an area that is sort of above what I normally do, and it's a focus of speech language pathologists. So voice aids are everything from voice amplifiers. So there's devices that you wear that simply make your voice louder. There's text-to-speech devices. There's communication boards that they help to develop, both as a paper format and technology. The provincial program that we use to help with voice and communication is called CAIA, Communication Assistance for Youth and Adults. It's a province-wide service that is funded. And referrals are usually from a speech language pathologist or an OT. And we would put in a referral, and the program has their own therapists that come to you, and they look at what you need and what they have. So for example, if you're having communication problems because of speech problems, they have tablets that they loan out to you for no cost with the programs and apps already built in for what they've determined will work with you, and they teach you how to use it. So I just want you to know that there are programs out there that can help with these things, especially if you're part of, if you're not part of one of the, either my clinic or Jim Pattison Outpatient Center in Surrey or the UBC clinic. If you're with a general neurologist in the community or your family doctor, please know that these programs do exist. Okay, writing tools. So, oops, I'm sorry, I had to clear my screen. So there's lots of different tools out there to help with handwriting. The first thing I always go to is just simply making the handle larger. So I have a couple of examples here. You can actually buy like pens that have a really big handle on them already. I also have, and people can purchase as well, is foam tubing. So these are just some examples. The hole in the center is what is different on each color. Simply slides or fits around your utensil to make the handle bigger. It makes a big difference for how much focus your hand is just for holding the pen, and then we can focus on actual writing. If you are struggling with micrographia, which is the small handwriting, two things can help. Use lined paper so that you have the lines to help guide you. And it can be also helpful to write in a column. So instead of trying to write across the entire page, I get people to write in shorter columns, just like a newspaper. Because tends to be that your handwriting is an okay size at the beginning, and then it gets smaller the farther you go across the page. So those two things can help. I also have some pictures of some other pens that exist. So pen again, if you can see, zoom in on this one, it fits with your finger over top to gain some control for how your hand is moving. And this red one is a large pen. It's also weighted. So it's a heavier pen to help reduce the tremor that people have. A few other things, organization tools to help us to just function well. First is a day timer. Day timers are really handy, whether it is a paper day timer, a calendar on your wall or fridge, or your technology day timer, your cell phone, your computer, tablet. But using a day timer is a very effective method to help with our memory, as well as just organization of what we're doing in a day. I absolutely use a day timer for everything I do, not because I don't want to use my memory, but because we want to help support our memory in this. Whiteboards can be also very helpful at home. So, you know, maybe it's, I have questions for my doctor and writing them down so that when you do have your visit with the doctor, you already know what you want to talk about. The same thing in a different format is using the notes page on your cell phone. So any smartphone comes with a notes page. This picture I have is an iPhone, but Android phones have them as well. And just keeping track of notes. Right now I have an ongoing list for Christmas gifts to buy. So when I'm out, I can look at the list quickly. But anything that you want to keep track of is very effective. Another thing that can be helpful is having a go kit. So this is sort of a bag at the front door of your house or whatever door you leave by with the items that you would commonly need to go out the door quickly, so that you're not rushing around before you head out to make sure you have everything you need. Just keeping your life as organized as possible helps support our memory, as well as reducing the risk of falls, because when we're rushing, our balance can be worse. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about before I'm happy to answer questions is safety. So there are safety devices and tools out there that are designed to help with everything from medical emergencies, falls, wandering, or confusion. So, you know, starting at the bottom here, most basic smoke detectors. Good time, a good reminder to check your smoke detectors. Make sure they're up and running. You know, if there was a fire, especially in your kitchen, we want the smoke detectors working so that it alerts us and other people right away. Same like having a fire extinguisher nearby is a good idea. Falls detection and alert system. So I have the two main ones in BC posted here, but there are other ones through alarm companies as well. So the top one, this large gray square or rectangle, is TELUS Living Well Companion. This one can be very effective for both in your home and in the community. So you would wear this device around your neck. It can be underneath your clothing. And it detects falls, provided it's a hard enough fall. If it's a really slow descent onto a chair or the ground, it may not detect it. But if it's a hard enough fall, it should detect it and get help right away. You can also push the button. So if you're having a medical emergency or you do have a fall, you can push the button and it's a speaker right on it. So it will work anywhere you are, inside or outside your home. Lifeline is another example, and Lifeline has several different types of devices. There's ones that people wear around their neck. There's ones that people wear around their wrists. Some of them work in the community and at home. Others are just for designed for in your home. I think of alert systems as insurance. We hope we never need to use our insurance policies, but it's a good way to ensure that we can access help if we need help. Over on the right-hand side, hip protectors. So again, I appreciate that people listening today, there'll be a big variance in how people are how their balance is right now. Hip protectors continue to show us that it does reduce the risk of breaking our hips. So the general concept, I have a picture at the top, it's a padded area or padding with a hard plastic cover over our hips, that if we were to fall, it helps to pad them to reduce the risk of a hip fracture. The ones at the bottom are the pant style. So you can see this picture has the foam on the hips. I chose this picture so that you could see what it looks like, but if you saw them from the front, it would look like a normal pair of pants. In general, this is the style I would recommend, is the pant style versus the tight bike short style of hip protectors. Can be tricky for people to get on and off on their own. And so you want to look at what works for you if this is the situation for yourself. The last thing I'll mention is there are tracking devices. This is just one example. So this is called Angel Sense. This people would carry with them if they were all day long, because for some people, wandering away from home or being out in the community and getting lost is a possibility. This one would track, as well as people can push the button. It says SOS on the front, so if they needed help. There's tracking devices on cell phones, watches. There are tracking devices that you can put on the insoles for people's shoes. People use, they're called, I think, tiles. So I'm just trying to think of the other name. They're little squares that will track where an item is, but you can track yourself as well. But the tracking, if you're using what's called a tile, it requires other people with cell phones to be around, because that's how it determines where anything is. So it doesn't work if there's not other people around. Okay, but like I said, I put this at the end just so that you have an idea that there are items out there that can help with safety and tracking and alert systems. But hopefully we're doing other things to work on before we get to this point. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover today. I'm just going to look at the questions here. But if you, I don't know, Alana, if people can turn on their microphones as well to speak. But I'll just go through these.
If they want to verbally ask a question, they can through the raise hand function. It's a hand icon at the bottom of the screen. Okay, and so then I would unmute them.
Oh, perfect. Okay, excellent. So if you can, put your hand up if you want to give a verbal question. So just go through these questions that people have been putting on. So the question was, what do you think of beds that raise the head of the bed for getting up? So absolutely, automatic beds. So two sort of things. We have hospital beds, but then there's electric beds. So they look like a regular bed, but they have where you can adjust the head of the bed and the feet. Yes, they can be effective. They can help with positioning, being comfortable, and they can help somewhat with helping people to sit up in bed. I would always suggest that you go to a store and try one first before you purchase one, to make sure that it will work for what you're hoping for. A lot of them, you cannot attach a bed rail to them. It depends on the setup and how it is. But yes, it can be effective for sure. Someone recommended another type of walker, a trionic walker. Absolutely. There are walkers out there with pneumatic wheels where it has some give to them so it can go over trails better. There are so many types of walkers out there that definitely you want to do a little bit of your own research and then talk to your team to see what works best. And while I'm well aware of a lot of walkers and equipment, there are so many out there that even I don't know them all. So good to, absolutely, most of us want to learn more. Okay, so a question about blister packs. Is there a charge? So yes, there can be a charge. So this is a question to your pharmacy. Not all pharmacies charge for blister packs. And so ask your pharmacy what the charge is. If you have extended benefits, it may cover that as well. And honestly, if you need blister packs and they're not covering it, I would be calling other pharmacies to see if they cover the cost. I don't know why some cover and some don't. I find the smaller pharmacies tend to do them for free, but it just depends on the pharmacy. Bruce suggested could set verbal reminders with Hey Google or Alexa's. Absolutely. You can set up, you can tell your phone to do things. So when I'm cooking, I often tell my phone to set timers so that I'm hands-free and not having to touch anything. But then it can remind you with different things. Oh, Rick mentioned about apps available for smartphones and med reminders. So there's different things out there. So there are simple, just setting up a timer on a phone or a tablet, but there are apps available. So I know the latest updates for Apple phones, or maybe 2 updates ago, there is under the health app, there is now a medication function. So what this does is it sets a reminder, but it also requires you to say that you've taken the medication. And then it helps to track what you've taken and what you haven't, so that you can actually show your doctor that when you meet with them. So yes, there are, and I'm sure, I've no doubt that there's other actual apps that you can download that have the reminders plus the tracking to help you manage that as well. On the health app for Apple products, you can also add notes to it so that, you know, if you're having symptoms and you want to remember when those were. Okay. So a person asked about any tips for improving dictation quality. So this is where it's difficult. So Google Dictate tends to only work best for short, sort of short messages. But it does not always pick up the correct words when we're saying them. I would, as hard as this is I know it's hard in our system, but I would consult with a speech language pathologist to try and find what would work best for you. Because there are free programs out there, but I don't want you spending a lot of money and then finding out it doesn't work for you. And so, yeah, because dictation is hard. Certainly, I would say practicing your voice and breathing before you speak as just a really basic to help dictation, but it's not an easy thing for sure. Question, is there one store that specializes in assistive devices? No, there is not. There are many stores. So you'll see what I put in my presentation. A lot of the pictures came from Amazon just because it's easiest to see the pictures that way. But Amazon is not an assistive devices store in any way, but sometimes they're cheaper there. Performance Health is what some of the pictures are listed as. Performance Health has all forms of assistive devices, but they don't have a lot of things like walkers and poles and that sort of things. It's the smaller items they carry. But it's really looking for a store in your home community that has samples or like in-store products that you can look at. That's helpful. I would also suggest, though, if there's an item that you know you want, look online and just type in that item in the search function. And often you have to push Canada as well, because different stores sell different things. So an example would be the built-up handled utensils and even kitchen tools. One brand is called Good Grips, or it's called OXO. They sell those at the Bay, Winners, and other smaller stores. So it's searching for items if you know what you want. Same person, Kenji, asked about dictation. Should I consider paid apps? So this is a possibility that the apps that cost money have more features and better apps, is really what it is. The challenge is that apps can be a few dollars. They could be $150. And so that's where I would suggest seeing a therapist first before you purchase apps, because hopefully they'll be able to trial the app with you first to determine if that's something that you would want to purchase. But yeah, doing your own research on some of these things can be helpful. Okay. Yeah, Dragon dictation, and there's different types of Dragon dictation. There is a professional version as well. It is a big, people use that often with PCs for computers. Okay. A quick question about how to put a bra on. So I'm just reading the question. So this is something that comes up often. So for a bra, I would look at the type of bra and then technique. So there are bras that you can do that are front closure. Now, a lot of them have the small little clips that if you are having tremors or strength problems, this can be an issue. But I was able to find online this week for a patient bras that have Velcro at the front and really big snaps so that it's less effort to put them on. But anywhere that you can do front closure is often the easiest because you're not having to twist and turn to put it on. Sometimes, and zippers would be the other thing. There are bras that have zippers at the front. To put it on, I would say take your time and breathe a lot because it can be very frustrating. But you want to have it that you can slide it on easy enough. So if you're going to use something like a sports bra, I would buy a size up because if they're too tight, it's going to be much more difficult. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. But I think looking at the bra style first would be the place I would look. Someone asked my professional credentials. So I'm an occupational therapist. I have my master's in science and occupational therapy from the University of Toronto. Someone also recommends sporks can be a great find or great, absolutely. So a spork is those utensils that have, it looks like it works as a spoon, but it also has the ends of a fork. So you can use either one. Some of them also have a little tiny knife on the side as well. Yeah, camping stores sell those for sure. And like places like Eddie Bauer would sell them. They're often plastic or like bamboo or other forms of wood. I'm not sure if I've ever found a metal one, but it might be something to look at to give you some options. And I want you to know from when it comes to eating utensils, I went over a very limited amount. There are many different styles out there. That's why I would say start with the smaller, try simple things like making the handle bigger, easy as that. I have some people who simply just take like pipe insulation foam and put some duct tape around it to try it out, see if it works. And then look at purchasing ones that you could use every day, put in the dishwasher, all those easy things. Okay, so there's no other questions that I can see, but I appreciate all of you and your time, and also want to make sure that you get to go on and have lunch and continue with your day.
Lisa, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us today in a very informative presentation. And thank you all for attending and have a great afternoon.